Hello and welcome to the 2025 seminar proposed by the Preservation and Migration Commission, also known as PMC of FIATIFTA, which is the International Federation of Television Archive. I'm Etienne Marchand, I'm co-chair of the commission, and I will act as the presenter for this seminar entitled, Is This the Last Train for Migration? And Are we really sure of the destination? The seminar will last approximately 90 minutes. I'm going to show you the program for the seminar. So this is the link to reach the web page of the commission organizing the seminar. The seminar will be divided in three main sections covering three subtopics, each presented by a member of our commission. First, Laurent Boch from RAI, the national broadcaster in Italy, will provide some context on the situation with the topic migration outlook for legacy formats. Then Brecht Declercq from RSI, the national Italian language broadcaster in Switzerland, will present the media obsolescence score, a method for assessing the risk of obsolescence for all audiovisual formats. Finally, Miroslav Čuljat from RTVE, the national broadcaster in Ireland, will make us look at what's happening beyond migration once we've stepped permanently into the digital domain. Each speech will be followed by a short debate gathering the following panelists. We have Heidi Shakespeare from Memnon in Belgium. We have Jean-Christophe Kummer from NOA-Archive in Austria. We have Esther Elorza from RTVE in Spain. We have Daniela Pinheiro da Silva from Fundação Getulio Vargas in Brazil. And we have Marjolein Steeman from Sound and Vision in the Netherlands. They will introduce themselves in more details at the start of the debates. And the debate rounds will be moderated by Charles Fairall from the British Film Institute in the UK. Other members of the PMC may also participate during the debates. Each speech and each debate round will last about 12 minutes, so every part will be about 24 minutes. After the three parts, we will take a few minutes to answer any question you may have. You can write down your question in the chat all along the seminar. Some of the questions will be answered in writing by the speakers or the panelists during the seminar, and the others will be kept for the live Q&A session at the end. The whole seminar is being recorded and will be made available soon. So now's the time for the first part. And the first part is Laurent Boch with migration outlook for legacy formats facing the negative consequences of obsolescence. So Laurent, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Would like to, yes, select the screen. That's it. Okay. So.
Good.
Wow. Yes. Thank you so much, Etienne. The custom of this kind of presentation would have required me to begin by acknowledging the extreme seriousness of the situation of legacy formats for audiovisual archives. I would have drawn up the usual inventory of catastrophes, their consequences, chosen a few shocking figures and spice it up with a story or two to capture attention. But why waste time? And everyone knows there is a problem. We don't need to explain that technology obsolescence is a process where the value of a technology diminishes as newer alternatives emerge, is a challenge for the archives. The aim is to understand if this is a critical time, after which, likely, no effort is going to be enough to migrate the last forgotten collections. If there is a last train to catch, what time is going to leave? From which platforms? Are there any tickets still available? How much will they cost? In the title of the seminar, there is also an additional question. Are we pretty sure of the destination. The last part of the seminar is going to be about digital preservation. We, the Commission, in this community, we are debating if this is really an issue, if the available products and platforms already do the job or not, and if preservation models such as OAIS are considered seriously enough. Any relation with technology obsolescence? Well, this last train issue for legacy format is not a problem for all the audiovisual archives. Some have already migrated content from their stocks of carriers. Others already have processes in progress with all the necessary resources deployed. This warning is for everyone else. Which formats are we talking about? I would say any audio or video magnetic format, depending on obsolete equipment for accessing to content. Sure, the older it is, more advanced obsolescence is. The last train of U-matic and BVU will leave earlier than that of Betacam and IMX. The history of audiovisual formats is telling us that the adoption and decline of a format was depending on the evolution of the technology used for production, for delivery, while the archive was kept aside from the game. Are we sure we all agree and we agree in the past on the meaning of the archive? Were the archives aware that media production was switching from one format to another while in the same time having quantities of carriers in the declining format? Yes, they were aware, but there was no rush, as equipment was easily available for accessing that content. However, already there was a possible misunderstanding on the meaning of archive. Some were thinking of the archive as the place where you can let things getting old, buying an opportunity to access the content just in case for a period of time. During that period, a blind countdown, the accessed content could likely be migrated to a newer format, and the forgotten content was not migrated. The implicit concept is that content which was not requested for such a long time was not worth being preserved longer. Moreover, they could think at the time that it would still be possible to access a particular content item if they would really need to. The decline steps begin with the end of production of playback equipment, followed by the end of production of spare parts, end of availability of equipment and parts on the commercial market first, and on second-hand market next. Not mentioning expertise on using, configuring, repairing the equipment, and on the characteristics on the format itself. So expertise on the characteristics of the formats. You may think that if you have a problem in-house, then the rescue bot might be outsourcing. Yes, migration providers may have their stocks of equipment as spare parts, can act more easily on the second-hand market, may recruit expertise among retired technicians. However, they cannot stop the countdown. Should we ask them what time is last train? Having a look at the mechanisms of any market, it's the market maybe, from the point of view of the customer's need, given the amount of carriers or any other unit you want to use, hours or content, given a price per unit will get easily the total cost. But what if the total cost is above your budget? Assuming you will have already considered other aspects that relate to quality of results and the unitary price. The only solution is reducing the quantity. This is not prioritization. This is a selection. And for selecting which content migrate, you have to know what content is before migrating it. So this, I would call this an inventory issue. There may be several arguments against against migrating a piece of content. You may have already digitized a copy. You may have a copy in an easier to migrate format. You could have not much to do with the content, such as not having produced it, not owning the rights. In that case, someone else is already preserving it. It may be, question marks, raw material that wasn't used for finalizing some work. If it was discarded in the past, why should we work the effort now? Some will not agree on this point of view, of course. However, you should at least have some clues for assuming that some unique, valuable content is recorded on that forgotten tape. Moreover, when content is a bit redundant, some selection should be possible. I don't want to say that only unique and unconventional content deserves to be preserved. However, we recommend experimenting some strategies of co-sampling for analyzing as a more representative portion of a large pool of material, trying to infer a degree of possible interest, if not information is otherwise available. On the technical side, some are envisaging alternative modalities of accessing content recorded on magnetic formats. For instance, playback equipment could be used only for mechanical tape transport, and the signal could be retrieved from the reading heads, bypassing many components that may not work anymore or could be difficult to be correctly set. Interesting. To be considered with caution, this is still experimental. It has to be adjusted for each format, and it should be usable on a reasonable scale in order to be considered a viable alternative. As for other cases of dealing with scarce resources, the choice might be between cooperation and competition. The first one who hoard or grab the remaining equipment and parts is going to be in advantageous position. They could have enough playback capability for their collection, or if they are migration providers, they may have bargaining leverage on this market. Let's spend a while on the concept of playback capability. A definition could be, depending on a specified format, as the number of content hours or carriers that it is still possible to play back successfully with the available technical resources. Not easy to estimate, unless in terms of plausibility. In fact, often some colleagues come and tell, oh, we have found a video player, but we don't know if it works. Even if it seems to be working, does it work well? For how long could it be used? Maybe it's a bit easier with larger numbers. Having 30 IMX players, for instance, deployed for years within a digitization process gives the knowledge of the experience. How often they need intervention, how many parts are still available, how many hours they worked successfully. In such a case, prediction of playback capability is possible. So if the playback capability is lower than your unmigrated collection, it's not possible to migrate to the whole collection. You have to select what to migrate or try something else for recovering further playback capability. What can we say about cooperation and sharing? There are various aspects possibly related to cooperation and sharing. My breakdown includes knowledge, equipment, and with a question mark, content itself. Only talking about the first two. Sharing knowledge is the easiest because you don't have to give up something. It's a kind of activity for which Fiativta is engaged. Sharing equipment is possible when you don't have any remaining migration need for a given format. Yet I don't know enough about organizations having wished to avoid this mission of some equipment for donating or make available. Nothing to say about film? Well, regarding digitization, I think that there is no rush, unless film is in bad condition. This condition drives. Also, digitization of film doesn't normally mean dismission of the physical film. In the case of film, digitization is a means of accessing the content in the digital world. So let's say no last train problem for film. However, the panelists may include film when discussing about digital preservation challenges, if they want. And what about obsolescence in digital preservation? The little conceptual framework that I'm proposing here is made of 4 dimensions. 3 of them are quite technical. First one is the storage technology with its infrastructure and equipment, because alternatives are going to emerge. When alternatives emerge, something will decline. A second always mentioned is media content file formats. For the less popular ones, there may be risk of becoming unsupported by emerging operational environments. Then, the last technical dimension refers to the solutions that allow content to be found and accessed by means of search and retrieval functions. That is a technology in charge of preserving the link between descriptive information and the archived digital objects. Digital preservation planning can't prevent obsolescence, it must prevent its negative consequences. I'm closing this contribution with one thought on an obsolescence risk for any archive as a whole. The possibility that its designated community loses interest. Without the support of a designated community as the main stakeholder, the archiving process would weaken and phase out. So now, thank you very much for the attention, and room for the debate. I hand over to Charles.
Thank you very much, Laurent. If anybody was hoping to close their eyes and pretended it had all gone away, you certainly disabused us of that. You've covered everything there very thoroughly, all the little details, all the little corners. The nature of the debate will be quite kind of fixed because we have very limited time. We have 12 minutes for the debate. I'm not going to spend time talking now. I'm going to introduce us straight away to our first debater, who will show a few slides and explain their position in this world of archiving and obsolescence and last trains. Heidi Shakespeare.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Charles. Hi, everyone. I'm Heidi Shakespeare, the CEO of Memnon Archiving Services. Let me start by saying, first and foremost, this is not a sales pitch, but I would like to give you a very quick sense of who we are because it's relevant to the perspectives that I'm going to be sharing right now. So Memnon does specialize. We are one of those outsourced providers that Laurent was referring to. We specialize in large-scale media migration and preservation. What makes us unique beyond our scale is our hybrid delivery model. For many clients, we handle the migration within one of our dedicated migration facilities. But when archives are too large to move, they're geographically remote, or they need to remain within their own national or institutional infrastructure, we do offer a fully deployed on-site solution where we will build and customize digitization workflows, where the archive is physically located, providing the infrastructure, the machines, the local recruitment, the training, and the technical support. With over 5 million hours digitized globally, we have certainly learned a lot about this topic, and it is clear to us that the industry is at a critical turning point. So the question that we're asking today, is this the last train for migration? We're asking that question very, very seriously because the numbers that we've seen show that we may be approaching, or that we are approaching, capacity overload. In 21 years, we've delivered 5 million hours of digitized content, which is an average of 20,000 hours per month. In the next 18 months, we're going to deliver 1.25 million hours, which is an average of 69,500 hours per month. In the last 12 months alone, we have quoted to digitize 7 million hours. So that's 10 years of work at today's maximum capacity. That's 10 years of customers who have identified that they do want to be on the train. The train is filling fast, and if you're still deciding whether to digitize, the queue ahead of you is already years long. And even if you could jump on the train right now, you might find that for some formats in particular, the track is already dismantled. The three biggest threats that we're seeing, which Laurent's already touched on, is hardware obsolescence. There are no new machines. Spare parts are now rare artifacts, and critical playback components, especially heads, are out of production and incredibly difficult to have retipped. We're also seeing format fragility, and we're not, again, just talking about the old analog formats. A lot of the newer digital formats that were meant to be future-proof, we are seeing a lot of challenges with. The physical media is degrading. The digital formats are at risk of file corruption and outdated systems. And one of the bigger risks that we're seeing is the depletion of talent. So engineers, broadcast engineers who can operate and repair the legacy systems, they're retiring, and there's no large pool of replacements. They're just not being trained fast enough. So we are at that convergent point where media, machines, and minds are all vanishing. And if you're not migrating now, you may not get another chance. This final slide is, again, based on our lived experience, and it does differ depending on which market you're in. We do see different challenges with different formats in different markets. Some formats are already on the platform waiting for a train that in reality may never actually come. So this isn't a theoretical risk. Some of these formats are on the verge of total inaccessibility. So what we've done with this chart and what we sort of would like to advise is that you use this chart in combination with others that you'll be seeing later today to help triage your collections. This can be used as a decision support tool, but don't wait for the perfect plan. You have to act now using a combination of your own intelligence and archive metadata, including looking at things like content value, which is historical, cultural, and financial, of format fragility, and of resource availability. In terms of obsolescence that's being shown on this slide, first, we would suggest that you focus on the critical and highly difficult formats, D formats, 2-inch, etc., because these do require specialist workflows and the equipment that is disappearing now, not later. Formats that are ranked medium and high, they're next in line, but you will see that we don't have anything on the low risk, and that's for all the reasons that I've previously discussed. So whether you're working with us, in-house, with Jean-Christophe from NOA-Archive, who you'll hear from shortly, or any other trusted provider, the most important thing in our perspective is that you do need to do something now, because the technological, logistical, and human limitations we're facing are not abstract. They are real and they are accelerating. So today, we're not here to compete. We're here to collaborate and push each other forward, because this work does matter. Once a format becomes unreadable, or a tape deteriorates beyond rescue, or the last expert retires, the content is gone. And for anyone that happened to have the privilege of being at the Focal Awards last night, you will have seen firsthand the power and value of archival content. These stories, they exist only because somebody took action. So the real question for me isn't, is this the last train for migration? It's, are you on it? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Thank you very much for such clarity and for presenting the story, as it were, through the lens, through the commercial lens, which is such an important aspect of all of our lives. And I think that it has to be said, congratulations for running successful business, doing such amazing work, to all suppliers of services to archives, whether that be outsourcing or insourcing, and also a huge thank you from the hearts of all of us. I know that we have a question now from Marjolein Steeman. Marjolein, could I cut straight to you, please?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Nice. Hello, everybody. My name is Marjolein Steeman, and I'm a preservation officer at Sound and Vision in the Netherlands. Yes, I do have a question, Heidi, because you're telling us that the numbers are going up, that you have loads of work, actually. And I was wondering, from your perspective, do you also see a shift in the marketplace, that there are increasingly less service providers like you? Are you sort of last man standing, or how do you see your position in this market?
We're definitely not the last man standing. There are a number of very talented service providers out there like us, and there need to be, because we all do have different skills and attributes and things that we bring. I think that some of the smaller businesses are struggling at the moment for the fact that the costs of our operations are going up exponentially. Our internal cost to migrate a tape has probably gone up 50% in the last 3 to 4 years, because the cost of heads is going up, the cost of parts going up, talent, again, going back to the talent resource in terms of engineers and things. So our costs are going up, which is putting pressure on the cost to migrate. And some businesses, unfortunately, particularly the smaller ones, haven't been able to sustain that, because we can't go down to the local hardware shop, as everybody here knows, and buy a new VTR. So we do have to take, in some cases, we're cannibalizing 5 machines to rebuild 1 machine, whereas 5 years ago, we might have been able to use all of those 5 machines in our production.
Excellent. Before we hand over to Esther, and yes, it really is that quick, who is our next panelist, our next speaker in the debate session at least. I just wanted to make one comment, Heidi, which is you've opened our eyes also now to the fact that we may have to join a queue, that it's not everybody first come, first served anymore.
First of all, I would like to congratulate Heidi and his company, because a very big part of our videotapes are in Brussels, digitizing with the company.
Yes.
And they are making an excellent job. So thank you and congratulations for your job. And now I will share with all of you the situation in our company. First of all, my name is Esther Elorza. I'm from Spain. I work in the Spanish Public Radio and Television Archive. And for example, in our case, the first steps with migration and digitalization project were in the first years of the century. We migrate the oldest videotapes 1 inch and 2 inch to IMX. And after that, in 2010, we began with the digitalization project. And since then, we have digitized more than 1,600,000 tapes and films. Now we are digitizing, we have around 300,000 non-digitized videotapes. This part of them are the videotapes from Brussels, from regional departments. With these tapes, we have a problem because many of them are unidentified, so we have to digitalize them. And after the digitalization, we have to watch the content, to save or to delay the media. And the other part of these non-digitized videotapes, they are here in Madrid, or also in Barcelona, in our production center in Barcelona. But most of them are videotapes sent by Spanish and foreign agencies. We can use the content while the contract is valid, but after that, we can use them. So we want to digitalize these videotapes. At least someone demands the digitalization of these videotapes. Our main problem is the film boxes. We have many news from the 70s, a time where in Spain happened everything with the dictator, the first democratic election. So we are now digitalizing many films released with many interesting footages. Many of them are unidentified, so we are identifying the content to know what we have, and after that we are digitizing these film reels. This is our next steps in the digitalization project here in our company. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Esther. So much covered there in such a short space of time again, but very clearly described. I am going to hand straight over to Etienne, who has 1.5 minutes to talk on this, to talk back to Esther on her message.
Quick question. I wish we had more time, but it's going very fast. So we saw from your presentation that you still have a lot of unmigrated assets, both in video and on film. As Laurent said at the end of his presentation, film is probably not as urgent to digitize because the obsolescence issue is not there yet. So do you feel that it influences the way you choose, you pick up what you digitize currently? Like, do you put aside film to do more video because of this problem?
No, I think that we are very lucky people with film materials because they are in a very, very good condition. So we can wait at least 1 year, more 2 years before digitize this content. We are digitalizing films reels when someone demands, because it's from the 70s. We have many reels about Francisco Franco, the dictator who runs Spain and died. In next November will be the 50th anniversary. So we are digitizing everything about Franco. But it's true that with the regional departments videotapes, we put all I don't know how to say in English, but we are working very hard with this kind of material before the situation of the videotapes will be grown.
So that reminds us that it's not just about formats and machines and digital processes. It's also, most importantly, about what's in the archives. And sometimes the business of archives is driven by the story rather than by the technology. Thank you so much to our debaters in the first round there, which was fantastic. I'm afraid without further ado, we have to move on now. I'm delighted to introduce our next speaker, Brecht Declercq.
And if I'm audible, you should now also see my slides.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Heidi was just saying that she was not doing a sales pitch. I am going to do a sales pitch, not of a commercial proposal, but of an idea. And it may come in late. We are seeing that things are becoming more urgent, but I would rather pitch this one to hear your opinion. I'm gonna skip this slide because this is what we know. The clock is ticking. Playback technology obsolescence is a pressing issue. There is no one who has to be convinced still about this. However, when I teach at several universities and training programs in audiovisual archiving throughout the world, and when I'm telling about collection assessment for digitization planning, I bring in a few factors. Obviously, there is the money that you need or the budget that you have at your disposal or not, and there is the quantities, etc., etc. But next to that, there are other things. There is the carrier condition, and there are the storage conditions. Those are the determining factors when it comes to the collection to be digitized itself. And about these things, we have concrete information. We have means to determine how pressing things are in terms of quantities, carrier condition, and storage conditions based on these collections and the storage they find themselves in. When it comes to technology obsolescence, however, I was telling my students, like, okay, this is also a factor that you have to bring in. And one of my students said, and how do you measure that? And she was right in the sense that, yeah, how do you measure that? My own way of measuring that was like talks, informal talks at conferences or so. So I was asking myself what could be objective parameters there. And so I did some thinking, and I thought, like, let's try to clarify things at the service of strategic decision making. Because a lot of institutes, archives, libraries, they're still determining their strategy, and they are quite late, that's true, but that shouldn't hinder them. So I read an article of already quite a few years ago in the IASA journal, written by Mike Casey, the man you see on the left, who was largely responsible for the planning of the digitization project, one of the most groundbreaking digitization projects worldwide at Bloomington University and in Indiana. And he wrote an article about how obsolescence, technology obsolescence in the audiovisual preservation domain, how it proceeds. And I got inspiration from that, and he appeared to be inspired by Chris Lasinik, another guy that many of us know, running AVP, a consultancy company in audiovisual preservation and MUM systems. And they actually had proposed this, I could call it a timeline of obsolescence, of progress of obsolescence starting. And Laurent already mentioned a few of these things, and I won't explain them all because they're quite self-explanatory. So it starts with the end of production of playback equipment. That's always a first signal. You see some announcement on some website. The end of availability of new playback equipment on the commercial market. End of expertise among repair technicians is often the next one. End of availability of instruments used by repair technicians. End of availability of instruments needed for calibration and alignment. Depletion of stocks of spare parts and components. And I'm sure that the service providers present in the audience and in the panel will recognize it. End of availability of the players on the second-hand market. And then the very last stage, I would say that nobody knows anymore how to play the media back at some point. So these are these stages. And when thinking about an instrument to how to enable people to measure this obsolescence, I thought like there is one particular element that is particularly important, that is the depletion of stocks of spare parts and components, to be split in reading heads, elements, and needles. So the very core part where the signal is read out, and other spare parts. So I wanted to give this part particular attention, and that's why I came up with these nine parameters. Evaluated annually by experts. That would be my proposal. My proposal would be like, can't we make a framework in which we evaluate with a group of experts on an annual basis the stadium that technology obsolescence is in? And I tried to keep things simple, and I said, like, why don't we score each of these parameters from 0 to 4, starting with a 0, not started yet, 1, 2, or 3 if things are in course, and 4 would be if that stadium is fully achieved. And then you get to a score between 0, which means perfectly safe, no clouds in the sky, perfectly okay, and 36, critically obsolete. So I did some thinking work just on myself. And once again, I would be open to compose a group of experts and to discuss these things. And these are the results that I obtained. I listed, I think these are about 56 formats, splitting a few things up. Also there, for example, I included eumatic twice there because I make a distinction between eumatic high band, low band on the one hand, and eumatics containing an FM signal, for example, radio signal, for example. And this is what I came at, and I saw that actually there are quite a few that are on the high side, and that's no coincidence. I think that doesn't surprise anyone. But I wanted to ask myself, like, okay, what do I still consider safe? Which formats are still in the safe zone? And I said, like, maybe the border is on a score of 15, more or less. If you collect less than 15 points, we're talking about formats like CDs, audio CD formatted optical discs, DVDs, vinyl and microgroove discs, HD cam and HD cam SR, wax cylinders, an old format, but still very much playable. VHS is already above the line. So, and those are the only ones that are still in the safe zone. All the rest would be already far above the red line. So this kind of framework would allow us to objectify, I would say, to measure somewhat better the technology obsolescence score. And the idea is that it would be provided to the community as an internal and external advocacy tool for strategy development and planning. That's how you could use this in your archive. Whenever you're trying to convince some kind of politician, some kind of funder, some kind of whatever institution that is funding you. And I was thinking, like, okay, could this be an interesting thing? If yes, would it make sense to have annual updates? would it make sense to give a view on the actual situation versus the outlook for the next years? Because we've heard Heidi, and things are not going to slow down, that's for sure. Could it be hosted at the Preservation and Migration Commission of Fiat IFTA, or would other experts even be involved beyond Fiat IFTA and the sister organizations? What could be other factors that could make that score even better? Could it be a living instrument for the field? Would we have to differentiate between different geographical zones to get a better idea about this? So my question also to the audience would be like, is this valuable to you? Would you like to use it in advocacy or planning? How can we advance this as a field? These are just a few open questions to gauge your reaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brecht. Thank you very much indeed. Red slides, lists that begin with the word end. 7 ends and 1 depletion? This is the world that we're inhabiting. It looks pretty urgent from that presentation, and your graphs really say everything, I think. Our first debater on this second round is Christophe. Christophe, can I ask you the question as you introduce yourself? Is it the end?
You're still muted, Christophe.
Christophe, we have no audio.
When a sound engineer does not know his mute button, something goes wrong. Hello, everybody. My name is Christophe Kummer. Thank you very much to be invited as a panelist to this round here. I have probably a few controversial slides here because, and I think controversial is sometimes very good. We are providing systems worldwide. We call them preservation digitization factories. And I would like to also just a little bit put a light on past and current situation and outlook. And it's funny because it's just quite in line with what Heidi shows is actually 5 million hours have been digitized with NOA tools in the last 20 years. Around 2 million assets have been, so factories have been created, and you see actually the list of the factories which have been created only in the last 2 years with an average of almost 700,000 assets per year of need. You see here a small picture of Abu Dhabi Media Corporation with 50 people working there to preserve almost 400,000 assets in about 4 years, and we are well in plan. And indeed, also the sales funnel for the upcoming digitization factories is also quite impressive. So we are in a situation indeed that we have an exponential need, and a lot of people have woken up. And what I can say already now is that we know that there will not be enough machines. So what I would like to highlight a little bit here is maybe a different approach in how we see the market, or how we try to make this train going on a little bit longer. Yeah, we have the situation here. I will click to my next slide if this works. Yeah, so we provide actually, we just have, we are about to start a huge preservation factory in Kuwait. So we deliver the complete engineering, we deliver the complete workflows, the business processes. We make it as such that within 3 years, an amount of almost 300,000 assets can be done in a realistic time frame. Yeah. We provide technology. So I'm sorry for this small sales pitch, but let alone we finished actually a 10 years project with the Austrian broadcaster ORF with about 600,000 IMX cassettes. And the downtime was actually 3 hours in 10 years. And we created also a lot of knowledge, of course, within this time. We know, for example, that some IMX players can run for almost actually 25,000 hours. Now, let's have a little bit of provocative look actually on what a typical broadcast archive, and maybe this is also more the main difference. There might be a lot of non-broadcast archives here, but if you look at the broadcast archives, we see it as such that we have a situation of problematic formats where it's practically impossible to get machines or to get repair equipment or to get people. These typically are 2 to 10% in a broadcast archive. Here, the recommendation is to give it really to an experienced service provider. When we have tried already to set up such corporations with Memnon, I think this will be also absolutely the future, and this will be necessary. There will be not any possibility here to do this without service providers here. But then there are also so-called unproblematic formats where there is still players available. And the funny fact is, you see down there also all these pictures of our stock. We have stocked them for the last 10 years. And in all our factories, we offer them as an option to rent. And then they say, oh no, this is expensive. No, well, let me first look whether I can find them ourselves. And then they find them typically themselves and say, well, I have some 30, 40 machines myself, but it's good that you can help out if it comes short. So this combination of insourcing of a complete end-to-end preservation factory, reusing what might exist on site with a client, and then helping out with additional machines when it comes short, might be an excellent answer also to help to keep the train going on. And I would like to also say one more thing, is actually my famous sentence about when you always start with the bad apples, you never get to the good ones. Do not try always to solve only the most obsolete format, because the moment when you get the funding for the most obsolete formats, then the non-obsolete formats will be obsolete at the time. So it would be good also to start with equipment, with systems which are more easy to operate, which have also a lower cost factor when you do it yourself, and that's where we come in. Thank you.
Christophe, thank you very much. Kind of turns everything on its head for me a bit. As an engineer, someone who's always repaired machines, the problematic machines there are the old ones. Well, those are the ones I did the training courses on. So those are the easy ones. That's one example of how you see things differently. Very often when you're dealing with a broken or a problem tape or a problem machine, is you have to ask the question, is it the tape or the machine?
Yes.
Or both?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's not a simple matter of whether you have machines available or whether the tapes have been looked after well, always. I'd love to bring Heidi back in, if I may, because I think Christophe and Heidi probably have far more experience of this kind of mixture of things than anybody else in this panel. So Heidi, do you have a comment to make on the table of problematic versus non-problematic?
I think that you should have a strategy that addresses both, because as I was mentioning earlier, your prioritization and your strategy when approaching your archive can't just be around obsolescence. That is obviously a big part, but there are other aspects in your archive, particularly with the new technologies that are becoming more available, that can help deliver return on investment faster, that can then potentially help fund future projects as well. So you have to look at the archive in totality, I think, rather than just in chunks and bite sizes. And again, that tends to be our approach when we're working with different clients. We don't tend to just work with one format at a time. We work with multiple formats simultaneously. So where we have automation, we can run those, there's less problematic, but by no means unproblematic formats simultaneously while we're doing the unitary U-matic's 2-inch, 1-inch that do need one operator and a lot more attention and sensitivity around the migration.
Thank you, Heidi. Christophe.
Mm-hmm. Well, my point here is that actually, when you look at, for example, at this Arabic region, then you have 95% beta families and actually a few percentage of non-beta families. And they have also limited budgets. So you can't come up with, hey, here we have actually, I don't know, 5 to 15 million euro for that project, but they may have actually 1 to 2 million projects to set up the operations. And then they try to find people to do the operations themselves. So sometimes it's also a commercial answer actually to see is how far can you get with existing funds. And here we have actually a different approach to say how we can just address this. I completely confirm that the train is soon hitting a wall. That's true. I'm just saying that by combining local resources, we might go a little bit longer.
Thank you very much for that. That's quite encouraging. I think between insourcing and outsourcing, we have pretty much all bases covered. Is there anything anybody else would like to come in on this subject? Anybody from the panel, from the PMC or from our guests? No? If not, I think we will conclude that was a very successful session where we exposed many of the kind of unanswered questions that have to be asked, and they have to be answered. I think it's now time to move to our third speaker, our third and final speaker for today's seminar, who will be talking a little bit more about or a little bit less about the legacy, analog legacies, the physical legacies, and a little bit more about the future. Where is the train going? I'd like now to pass to Miroslav Čuljat from RTE, who also is a co-chair of the PMC.
Hi, everyone. I think I unmuted myself in time, so let me just share the right screen. Hold on. Am I sharing the correct screen, full screen presentation?
Yes.
Very good. I'll start my timer as well. It's very easy to talk over 12 minutes on this topic. So first of all, to introduce myself, I'm Miroslav from RTE Archives. I manage archiving and preservation. And RTE is a public service media organization in Republic of Ireland. So yes, we are on the train. We got on it about 5 years ago doing mass digitization planning, and then eventually got on board. We've done so far, touch wood, all projects in time and budget and satisfactory quality. And yes, we're now wondering where we're traveling at speed. What do we need to do to prepare ourselves for that destination where we're traveling to in this new brave world of digital archive? And what do we need to do in preparation of that? What skills we need to develop in the team? What other challenges we may anticipate in this journey, and what does that destination actually look like? So in order to understand that, we looked at the basic theory of digital transformation. And we've learned about these distinct phases of digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation, the ultimate kind of final rethink of the whole organization in the digital world. And we've identified that we're now doing the first two things in parallel. So we are digitizing individual carriers, individual items, and organizing them, gaining intellectual control over them. But also we're automating various processes. We're doing data modeling. We're making sure that this now becomes accessible digitally to all users who need access to it, which means that we're already applying rules of digital preservation to this. Now, the next natural question that comes in is, what is digital preservation? So this is just probably the only thing I'm actually going to read from screen, which is in my opinion, very important definition from Digital Preservation Coalition about what is digital preservation. So it refers to the series of managed activities necessary to ensure continued access to digital materials for as long as necessary. So this applies to any digital objects. It doesn't necessarily need to be audiovisual content. And then the next natural question that comes in, how long is as long as necessary? Because we, based on our experience in the industry, and we've been living in the world of what was called initially tapeless workflows for the last 25 years. So we have a good grasp of what digital video means, what digital audio means, what is the digital access, what is the publishing, what's the media. But it's easy to look at in advance of 5 to 10 years, maybe even 20. But beyond that, it gets pretty scary. So talking to others and learning from their experience, we realized that a lot of our conclusions for prepping ourselves in this space are not just conjectures. They're actually, that there is some sense to it. So our intuition was right this time around. And also we're finding that there are some theories proving our practices as well, explaining them quite well. So in those early stages, we've been coming up with any sort of analogies, because archival mind is still there. It kind of translates in a different sort of world in digital domains. So when we talk about physical storage versus digital storage, when we talk about obsolete carriers and obsolete file formats. It's interesting about obsolete file formats. There is DPC published a global list of digitally endangered species in 2020. And when I think about video formats that were they were everywhere at the time, but disappeared since was, if you remember, Macromedia, Adobe Flash, that was used by YouTube and BBC iPlayer is gone. And I actually found it. I took to, let me see if I can tab to different application. Yes, I can. It's actually critically endangered species according to the DPC list from the 2020. So this proves that, yes, our video digital objects are at risk, like many of the audio but like many of the other like documents, WordPerfect, if you remember that. And so yes, so this is very, very real. Let me find back the screen that I want to go back to. I think I'm back in the right screen. So yeah, so there are a lot of these analogies, and it all makes perfect sense. The obsolescence of carriers. Now, it's interesting. I've actually seen a question from Predrag on the obsolescence of digital carriers. Absolutely true. We know it firsthand from an audio project that was done about 20 years ago, where a lot of content was digitized from audio cassettes. It's all magnetic or at the time, or quarter-inch, was digitized to DTF, and then it was migrated over to the LTO3. And LTO3 is pre-LTFS era, so it's all proprietary file systems. And then that ended up in myriad of external hard drives, which have their own problems. So there is a lot of acute knowledge of obsolescence of digital formats, but also there was a lot of those migrations. I think most organizations were doing going from, say, Betacam SP, say, okay, now it's DigiBeta is out, so let's transfer our content to there. So there's a lot of these legacy projects behind us, and understanding the provenance of that metadata of that content is extremely important too. So now just very quick recap of where we are currently now. So we've digitized large audio collections, and there is more to digitize, but we can see with the last train kind of going at speed that that the remainder of audio collection, which is a third of the original, was probably going to cost the same as the original, if not more, because of these challenges that previous speakers talked about. And on the video, we're actually halfway through a massive project, digitizing all our video tapes. Hold on, I progress too quickly. Sorry. Actually, I'll do it with spacebar. Is this better? No. Yes. So this is our tape journey coming, but where tape is traveling from shelves in secure vaults to a box, which is manifested both with soft copy and hard copy. And it's then actually hard copy we gave up on, it's soft copy only. And then we put 30 boxes on a Euro pallet, and then one shipment is about 33 boxes. So one pallet is being packed per day, and this is already going for over a year and a half, and it's going to go for another year and a half. So that's where we are now in the process of digitizing video, and these are some metrics of the video project that we're currently doing. Which is interesting when you look at the scary number of petabytes of sheer data that this project is producing. And when we talk to other institutions who are active in digital preservation field, universities, libraries, museums, etc., even commercial organizations too, have active awareness of digital preservation. So yes, we're unique in that sense, because nobody goes near this quantity of data. But still, the problems are still the same. The getting standardized control over these digital objects and making them accessible is a problem for everyone. It doesn't matter if you have 7 petabytes or 7 terabytes. The problems remain, and maintaining that intellectual control over them. So in practice, what happens? That transition from archival vaults to data sets is all these tapes are now from hundreds of shelves are just being funneled into servers which are distributed over data centers. And so physically we can say that they're out of sight, but we can't allow them to be out of mind. So that's the reality of this transformed digital archive that we're bracing ourselves to. So how are we doing this? It actually started with the audio project, but I'll give you the video project example, where we have developed a submission information package to introduce ourselves to the OIS model of digital preservation. And this package is unique to video, which has specific metadata requirements and specific access copy file and essence file, etc., and QC as well, file-based QC. But then where we actually first did this was in our audio digitization project, where we digitized over 60,000 quarter-inch tapes. And an interesting debate was had at the time when this package was being construed, that we weren't sure if we were over-engineering it by putting MD5 checksum for each file consistent inside the package. And some of us thought, I'm one of the engineers who thought, well, maybe it's an overkill. But I was proven wrong by a senior archivist for audio that no, it was correct to have that, because 3 months in the project, long behold, some of the deliveries were failing file integrity checks. So yes, absolutely, we do need we do need all these tests and quality control stops to make sure, because especially if you're doing things en masse, there's no second chance, and this is why it's important to have that mentality. And I was delighted that it was failing, and I was proven wrong that we actually needed that. So yes, so this is some of the summary of best practice thinking principles that we are applying, and we are at a different level of applying all these at a time. I'm looking at my timer, 11 minutes, so 1 minute to go. So I'm not going to read every single one of them. A lot of them are actually quite self-explanatory, but I would point out the development of digital skills in the team is absolutely essential. Understanding business analysis, workflow, process design, data modeling, data analysis. I think it's a given now that we must have those skills in our teams if we want to be successful archiving media content. And another thing that I think I would like to become as initiative from the PMC, that we raise awareness with technology partners that we work with. A lot of technology partners, like the partners present at this webinar, Heidi and Jean-Christophe, you're already well aware of digital preservation practices, but maybe technology vendors who come more from production background, media assets management vendors, I think it will probably be useful if they started saying, hey, we should maybe implement file integrity checks when files are in situ, or anytime the files are moved and things like this, or maybe we should actually start using terminology of OAS, and which is easily done in a MAM system, because you do have your archival package that you keep, you do have your dissemination, whether you send to a playout system or social media or video on demand platform. So I think that's a philosophy that's easy to adopt. So I'm now over my 12 minutes, so I'll just go to my last slide, which is just a reference that all these things are hyperlinks, and it's easily found on the internet. Some more resources to look at, and in particular, Premise and Kortra Seal, Marjolein from the Sound and Vision Institute in the Netherlands will talk about of their experience working with this. So that's all from me. My 12 minutes turned into 13. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Miroslav. Beautifully put. And the takeaway maybe from that is that as one last train arrives or departs, a whole queue of others are lining up to join. It's never done. And indeed, my introduction, which sort of said, oh, well, you know, we've talked about the legacy and now let's talk about the future. That really doesn't work at all, because provenance is a major issue when it comes to migration. And it's always going to be the case, and will continue to be the case for generations of archivists to come. I'm sure. So moving into our third and final debate session, I'd like to introduce now Daniela Pinheiro, who will give us some insights.
Hi, hello. I am Daniela Pinheiro. I come from Fundação Getulio Vargas in Brazil, but I also combine an experience of many years working at TV Global, which is one of the largest networks in the world. And today I'm going to illustrate Global's case in migration that will sort of really wrap up everything that we've heard our colleagues mention, especially Miroslav. So your curatorship was perfect because what Miroslav named, it is very well depicted in what I'm going to share. Can you see my screen?
Almost.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Now I'm just trying to, I need to say that I had spent some time in Portugal studying audiovisual archives as well, which helps me to get to the last slide. That is a provocation of what to do and not to do. But coming to the point of Global as an illustration of what was previously talked here, Global was founded in 1965. Therefore, all sorts of media that were mentioned by all our previous colleagues, many of them are in our archives. That said, it has always been a challenge to keep them alive, the content alive, being a Latin America company that I believe on the chat, Brecht mentioned something about Latin America. I think that Latin America and Africa, why not say that too? We face being younger countries and being countries with currencies that are not as strong as other currencies. We face the need to sometimes be more creative to deal with processes in order to actually get those done because they're too costly to us, even more costly than they normally are for everyone. The digitization started back in the 80s, but very, very prematurely and very disordained. It only gets ordained in 2015 at the time that Global negotiates with Dalit. Before then, the software, the program that the company used to use to put its metadata and its proxy images of its program so that researchers could find the images faster was named RRD, which stands for Registry for Recovery of Documents, and was designed within the premises. But as following the tendency of most companies to outsource this kind of service, Global hires Dalit as a repository and a database. And the migration of the content from RRD, as well as of everything that was being digitized, starts to move to Dalit when it is entertainment. But at the same time, there was this repository named Losses, which was developed within the premises of Global that would deal with journalism and sports. Dalit is here our main of main importance in my explanation because the entertainment has been the challenge of Global. First, because it's its main source of financial resource. Secondly, because it is the most complex. It has a higher definition, has more varied when digitized, different formats, and when it comes to migrating, that becomes more of a challenge rather than everything that was done in journalism and sports that were more patternized, going with Miroslav speaking on the need of patternization. So after Dalit, we need to move Losses and Dalit to Visart, which is the program that we use these days, the repository that we have these days with the metadata and research availability. And with that, and after that, we seal on 2021 an agreement with Google. But that does not mean that everything will be done in Google and all the documents will be in Google. The agreement is that the backups will be put into the cloud. So it is a ship traveling side by side with the migration from these two services, Dalet and Lozis, to Vizard. That said, we're still working with the migration to Vizard, and I have some numbers to give you guys to illustrate what I have previously mentioned of the difficulty, the more complex process that it is migrating from Dalet to Vizard. In entertainment, 64.38% has already been migrated, understanding that this process began at 2021. So it is sort of a slow pace. Whereas the migration from Losses to Vizard in sports is almost finished. In reality, this is a margin of just fixing redundancies and maybe some mixed deliveries, but that's considered to be finished, the sports. And journalism with a very close score as 98.51%, almost at its end. Needless to say that from the date Vizard became the official repository, everything from then on is already directly on Vizard. So we're talking about what we call in Brazil the passive. The passive is what came before the date that we sealed the new, we changed key to the new system. So we're talking all these documents are from 1965 up until 2020. And about the cloud, it was a project that I even mentioned on IFTA last year. It was a process of migrating the passive as well, but this time from 2025 to 2023. And it was already done. It is already, everything's already in the cloud. And it amounted to 1,002,030 IDs. And why do I say IDs? Because as I've mentioned before, entertainment has its particularities. So each block of one episode, it's one ID. So not necessarily an ID is a whole TV show. It might be just a piece of a TV show, hence the accountability done in IDs. That said, I would like to, this is what I wanted to show you guys. I know I have to be quick because there is Marjolein coming right after, so we can seal the deal. But I would like to raise awareness to that, what I have conversed with Laurent and Miroslav the other day and Etienne, that Latin America has the advantage of by not having that many resources, we tend to have a little later process going on. So we get to watch you guys perform and then learn some. And then when we act, we already have some basis on assertivity. And in that way, it's very nice. But on the other hand, sometimes we need to catch up. So these are advantages and disadvantages of I think, particularities of, I say Latin America because I converse with colleagues of mine of Chile, of Argentina, and we have very similar tension points. Of course, this presentation is a very wide and very superficial approach, but if we go deep, we see many things in common. That said, difficulties in how to prevent it. I'm not going to say it much because Miroslav mentioned everything. And before that, all the score that was perfect made by Brecht also illustrated much of it. The from to not always work that easily, that there is a system incompatibility that what sealed the difficulty from Dalits to Vizard. The misunderstanding between the professionals of the archive and researchers talking to the IT guys from Vizard was also a retro feeding cycle of this from to not working so well and delaying the migration of entertainment. The possible loss of data and even documents that, of course, won't happen if there is a constant checking on the migration process. The need to maintain two or more systems running, that is a problem because once you haven't finished all migration, you have to keep the two running, pay the two, maintain the two, restore the two, and have professionals dealing with the two to do anything that they need to do. How to prevent. Higher decisions should always better consultate the staff. checking the entire migration process regularly, and planning carefully prices and possibilities of customization of the elected new system. This dialogues very well with the consultation of the staff. Normally, it's very high in, at least here in Brazil, levels who deal with these contracts, and sometimes they don't have an idea of what exactly should be customized. So they seal some customization and some of gets out, and the budgeting is also very short, so it's hard to negotiate that. It happens, but it gets a tension point. That is it. Thank you.
Daniela, thank you again. Another fantastic presentation there, and opening eyes to another perspective, completely different lens altogether. I was kind of curious, if I may quickly ask, the journalism and sports, kind of the numbers are 99% or something, but entertainment is behind. Is that possibly due to interest and demand, sort of user demand, rather than preservation priority?
No. It's literally due to this misunderstanding between the teams, and the how-to from Dalet and Vizard revealed itself once it was done to be harder. They had to create many spaces for metadata at Vizard that weren't originally there. And then the from to was not so easily going. There were other issues of crossing the image, different image with different metadata, and then we would have to check and assert it. That was it.
Okay, that's fine. That clears that up. Thank you very much. Now over to Marjolein Steeman for our final debate perspective.
Yes, well, thanks. I will quickly try and share my screen.
Not the good one so far. Good.
Yes, can you see it?
Yep.
Yes, nice. Thank you. Well, what we're looking at is a sort of timeline. I know I'm short in time, so I'll try and make some concise points, just to as a takeaway from this seminar. This timeline shows the history of Sound and Vision, where I work as a preservation officer. It was founded in 1969, and then in 2007 till 2014 we had a huge digitization project, and I am very happy to say that management recognized that after that big project, we as a digital archive needed more insights and knowledge about how do we keep this quality in our digital archive. And that's why a preservation policy was created, and we also submitted for the Core Trust Seal. And the first certificate was in 2016, and it was renewed in 2020. And I cannot underestimate or undervalue the importance of certification, really. So I really, when you grow, or when you make your when you evolve to more digitization in the 3 steps that Miroslav presented, please consider if there is support from your management for trying to get a certificate, because it forces you to think about all the aspects of digitization. And it's based on OAIS. So as you know, it's the whole scope of from ingest until access, or rather from access, which is the main driver, down to ingest. At the moment, we are working on the renewal of the Quartus II. So I hope to be able to present it next time that we have the next round. I could talk about this for 2 days, I think, but I'll keep it to only 2 more slides. The first one that I'd like to show you is this one. And it is a plan that we created, which is called the Megafix. And we had to create this plan because it was not the files that became obsolete, but a typical thing that happened in the digitized world was that the software that was being used by the broadcaster, one of our main designated communities, had been updated. And from that point on, something happened that we couldn't foreseen, namely that flaws in formats that had not been recognized before came up and made them be that they couldn't be used. So that was a huge problem, and we had to analyze the complete MXF digitized archive so that you can see the amounts. And in a digitized world, I think planning is everything. And also there's a parallel with the logistics in the more analog world, which is interesting, I think. So in the schema, you can see at the arrows point to sort of databases that hold the results in between in the process, and they are gathered and are input in the next phase. So after analyzing and knowing what action was needed, either a rewrap of the file or a complete transcode, or even such flaws that needed manual looking after. And those 3 databases were input for the actual repairing of the files. And then in the end, the arrow at the bottom, I would like to point out, is that before any correction was made, there was a new database created, left corner in the bottom. And only after the latest QC positive outcome, those copies could be deleted again. So during the whole process, you have to be in control of all the steps that you need to take in order to get the repaired file back into your digital archive. So this project took about 3 years to go through all the files. So production time is really a lot. So don't have the illusion that once it's in the digital archive, then you can rest. That's not the case. Yeah, planning is everything, and that's one of the things that you learn from such things as CTS or OIIS when it comes to preservation planning. The last slide for now. is about metadata, because during this process, metadata is very important, of course. And what you see is the entities of the premise schema. Premise is the preservation metadata standard for not only the information that you need to deploy for the objects, so the files themselves, but I would say as important are the other entities, like the rights. So what are you allowed to do with the files, and on what grounds? And the other one are the events. And yes, as I showed in the previous slide, there can be many events happening to a file, starting from analyzing or moving the file or copying it to another database until it is being restored into your archive as the new AIP. And the aim is to make like a logging of all the events that happen to your file, so you can have a real audit trail of the digital object from the moment it enters your digital archive. And yeah, to me, that those insights they may seem obvious, like of course we need that, but it has many implications for your MEM system, and there are often sort of new situations where you have to reinvent again. How are we going to make choices on what events and what rights are needed, or are being checked, or are being logged, and how and where in your system are these metadata? So yeah, it's a whole new world actually. Once you have entered this train and you have come at your destination, then, as someone said, there are new trains to catch. And yeah, I think that's there's a whole lot more to tell about this.
Marjolein, thank you so much. We're very rapidly running out of time, unfortunately, because as you say, you know, we could talk for hours and hours and hours on this and all the other subjects. But yeah, the devil's in the detail. And while we're all rushing for the train, it's important that we don't miss the detail, because there are salutary tales to be told. I'm going to hand back very quickly to Etienne, because I know there are a few questions in the chat that maybe we can go over before we run out of time completely. Thank you very much to everybody for making that such an easy session to moderate.
Thank you, Charles. There have been questions indeed, but all questions have actually been answered in writing already. There were a few questions about difference of, for example, technical difficulties that are different between different regions of the world, the different standards in which video is recorded between Europe and Latin America, for example. So I don't think this, I mean, the outcome of the answers, something can be done. We can find machines for different standards. It doesn't make things easy, of course, to have a rare standards in some countries, but I don't think that's the main issue that we are facing. So can find solutions, probably. What else has been happening here? Yes, there was a question for Daniela who has answered. I won't comment it because it's really not my area, but the questions and answers will be compiled in the summary document that we will produce and make available later on the... Oh, I see a brand new question. Thank you. It's just a thank you. Okay. So that's one thank you for me as well, because time is up. So I'd like to thank our speakers and panelists who gave some of their time today. This was just the beginning of a conversation because we need to keep it going. And one of the next opportunities to do so will be during the World Conference of Fiat IFTA, which will be held in Rome. So I'm going to show you the slide for that. World Conference from October 28 to 31. On the very last day of the conference, on the 31st of October, we even have a slot dedicated to the last strain of migration. So we will try to continue the conversation, maybe with different people, so different points of view. And hopefully some of you participants of the seminar will also be able to get there. The recording of this seminar and the summary document, as I said, will be made available soon on our website. And that's it. So have a great day or a great night, maybe, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye. Adios.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. Bye-bye.